Can you name all the women Ted Bundy killed? Nancy Wilcox, Melissa Smith, Laura Ann Amy. The list sadly goes on and on. Honestly, how can we do better by the victims and the loved ones that were left behind? Today, we're talking to Carolyn Verdict, author of The Hot One, a memoir of friendship, sex, and murder about this very topic. Plus, I'll be joined by one of you, true crime superfan Carolyn Verdict, to get her perspective on the latest headlines. Please, you guys, do not forget to join the Crime Obsession Facebook group and use that hashtag #MyCrimeObsession. And who knows, one of your comments just might end up on our show. We've heard the opinions from some amazing experts, but this is a show for and by you. So I wanted to take the opportunity to talk directly with a fellow true crime fan. Please welcome Carolyn Verdict. Hello.
Hello.
Oh my God, thank you so much for doing this. Why do you think you're fascinated by true crime?
We used to sleep out on the porch when we were growing up, and one night, right before my mother and I were falling asleep, my brother said, "Watch out for the hammerman." I was like, well, who's the hammerman? And apparently there was a guy that was knocking on doors, and he would hammer people in the forehead, and he killed almost an entire family. One child survived. I think that was the first time I knew that people were capable of murder, and I was probably 8.
Did you sleep that night?
I did not sleep that night.
Are you binging any true crime shows or podcasts right now?
I am. Right now, currently, the 2nd season of Monster.
Oof.
I love the way that the structure of the show is. This is a phenomenal series.
I'm sure you're keeping up with all of the true crime news as religiously as I am. Am I right?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you mind sticking around and doing a little segment we like to call Crime Time? So big true crime news. Just ahead of ID's investigative series on the Atlanta child murders, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Bottoms announced that police are re-examining key evidence in the case.
To once again take a fresh look at these cases and to determine once and for all if there's additional evidence that may be tested that may give some peace, to the extent that peace can be had in a situation like this.
As we know, this never made the ranks of Zodiac, Bundy, or BTK, but thanks to the continued attention, including a new documentary by Will Packer, the victims are getting the attention they deserve. And the mayor even acknowledged the importance of Will's film, among others.
I also just want to acknowledge and thank so many in the digital community, and also my friend Will Packer, who is doing a documentary on the missing and murdered children. I understand will be airing soon, and also to our local media.
What are your thoughts on this?
I'm just so grateful that there is so much attention on the case, because these families should have peace.
Kudos to the mayor. I mean, this is obviously just the first step, but it's kind of inspiring to see what happens when we stay vigilant and we keep these cases in the forefronts of our minds.
Absolutely.
So here's an update on the Jamie Kloss story. The man charged with kidnapping her and killing her parents spoke to the media last week, revealing that he loved Jamie and still wanted to talk to her. He also described the way he spent time with Jamie while he had her hidden away. Quote, "We were just watching TV and playing board games, talking about stuff. We cooked a lot. Everything we made was homemade." Well, at least he's healthy. Oh, God. Gross. Yeah. I'm disgusted by this.
I know. This is, I feel like this is one of the things that we actually didn't need to know. The part where he said, "and I still love her," or "I love her." I hope to God they're shielding her from this.
Yeah.
And if she ever comes across this, I hope she is so far healed that it doesn't mess with her.
A couple episodes ago, we had Anita Woldridge on, who was, I'm sure you're familiar with her story. And it reminds me of that same toxic masculinity.
Right, and Elizabeth Smart, who went to the town to talk to the people there. I don't know the names of the people who abducted her, but I know her. Like, Elizabeth Smart triumphed from this experience, and more than likely, we're gonna know Jamie Kloss's name as the same.
All right, now it's time for Mugshot of the Week. This is where I scour the internet for the best mugshot I can find, or in this case, the best moose shot I can find. In Breckenridge, Colorado, a mother and daughter were woken up by the sound of what they thought was an intruder. Luckily, it was just a moose. Genevieve Nguyen was sleeping beside her young daughter when she was terrified by a loud crashing noise. Police were called and Everyone was shocked to discover that a full-grown moose had accidentally fallen through a glass window that was covered by snow. No one was seriously injured, and the moose was tranquilized and placed back by the wildlife authorities. Thank God.
Thank God.
Look at this little guy, though.
It's so cute.
I mean, if I had to choose my attacker.
I grew up in Colorado. I've never seen a moose in my entire life.
Is that true?
Yes.
Catherine, thank you so much. It's always fun chatting with another true crime super fan. I just love you. Now, lately I've been thinking a lot about how we talk about true crime. It's just so easy to focus on the details, the theories, the criminals, but what we really need to keep our focus on is those who have suffered, the victims and their friends and family. Here to offer her perspective is a journalist and someone who has lost her friend to a horrendous murder, Carolyn Verdict. Ashley Ellerin was a 22-year-old model and fashion student who was brutally stabbed to death in her Hollywood Hills home in 2001. Her murder had gone unsolved for many years until 2015, when a 32-year-old air conditioning repairman was charged with Ellerin's murder. He is potentially connected to up to 10 additional murders. Here to talk more about the case is Carolyn Verdict. Hi, Carolyn.
Thanks for having me.
So what made you want to take this on?
It was that, Ashley and I grew up together. I consider her my first best friend. We met when we were 9 years old, and we kind of really formed a bond that I think has stayed with me throughout life. And when I found out she was murdered, I had so many questions about what happened to her and who did this and, what were the circumstances. I went from knowing nothing. I went from knowing that, the last time I saw Ashley, she was living exciting sort of party-filled lifestyle in LA, and then the next thing I learned is that she was found murdered in her home. And then 3 years after that, I learned that on the night of her murder, she was supposed to be going on a date with Ashton Kutcher. The publications at the time were like, Ashton's tragedy, like Ashton Kutcher's tragic night. And then 4 years after that, I learned this guy's name and that he was an alleged serial killer, and I was shocked again. And then it wasn't until 2 years after that I showed up at the preliminary hearing that I learned this was a guy that lived down the street from her that they knew socially.
Are you going to go to the trial?
Yes. After all this time, opening testimony will probably be starting next month, finally, after the guy's been in custody 11 years. I think it's going to be really, really emotional. I've been I live in New York, and I've been back and forth to LA probably a dozen times over the past 10 years, attending court appearances and also connecting with some of her friends and getting to know the life that she lived in the last year before she was killed. And so, I sort of feel like it's something I have to do. I think it will be really hard and really emotional, but I've spent, my whole adult life kind of with this case as a sort of touchstone. So I think this is going to be the culmination of so many things.
As somebody who's reported on and been directly affected by true crime, how would you define it?
There's obviously a huge explosion of people, wanting to look at stories that have to do with violence or killers. And, we have podcasts and books. But my problem with it now, since I am sort of immersed in this world, is that so much of it is so formulaic and it's so male-focused that the female victim almost seems to be just an object that sets the rest of the plot in motion, but the people who are centered are the male killers or the male detectives. And we're seeing, such a one-sided perspective in so much of this storytelling. So that, that was something I definitely wanted to address in my book. And now the sort of stories that stand out to me are ones that are giving us different perspectives and more unusual perspectives than most of what's out there. And that, to me, is the stuff that is most powerful.
Now, you recently wrote a piece for The Cut, which really resonated with me because you were calling to action that people start focusing more on the victims and less on the killers. You actually wrote, when we exalt the killer, we're diverting our focus from people and ideas more worthy of our attention. We could be considering the victims and the people they left behind. I thought that was really beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, I think I started that article by, mentioning I had been getting these Facebook ads served to me for this subscription box called Hunt a Killer, which is some sort of like dinner party game that you can order where you can pretend to have a serial killer send you clues, and you can even get a bottle of wine along with it and get together with your friends and solve a crime. And then it was like Then I looked on Netflix and they had 4 new serial killer shows, and it just felt like can't even get away from just sort of elevating these male killers and glorifying the violence.
Do you think when we do shift to caring and paying more attention to the victims, do you think that's going to change the way people are investigating cases?
That's a good question. I think anytime you shift the focus to something, there's gonna be a ripple effect. And what I would like to see is, I'm speaking from a kind of media and entertainment perspective, and I'm looking at the shows and the books that are getting elevated. What I would like to see is more female creators and more minority victims being spotlighted.
So what I really enjoyed about your book is that you put the focus on Ashley and not her killer. Why do we identify a case by the killer's name versus the victim's name? Like Stephen Avery, we very rarely hear the name Teresa Hallback. Or like Adnan Syed versus Heyman Lee.
There are exceptions to this, and to me, that's the crime content that I think is most powerful. And one example is The Keepers. It centered the victim, but it also centered the people who have been affected by this loss and how they've carried that throughout life, and kind of the larger cultural moment that this fits into. And that's what I think all crime reporting has the potential to do.
Right. And it needs to get there. I'm so sick of knowing who the BTK killer was, but not having an idea as to who he killed.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn Verdict, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you.
As promised, a chance for you to weigh in. I asked you to talk to me, and you keep on delivering. I found this awesome post on Facebook from Kelly Erickson. She wrote, "You have been chosen to name the next ID show. What will it be?" Oh my God, I love this. Here are some awesome suggestions. Amber Lee said, hide and seek. Tina Jones wrote in dirty laundry. Julie Curtis said, she did, he gone. Mine would probably just be Crime Obsession Season 2. Thank you, Carolyn and Catherine, and thank you to you. I love our weekly conversations. And remember, keep the comments coming on the Facebook Crime Obsession page and use that hashtag #MyCrimeObsession. I live for these conversations that get started. Ooh, and a quick note to all my true crime friends, IDCon will be happening soon, May 18th in New York City. I hope to see you there. Until then, stay safe. Bye.